Sean Spicer goes off when analyst slams GOP election integrity bill. This is a stupid discussion. I think it's his own guest. If so, I have to give credit where credit is due. Sean, did you bring on somebody you don't agree with to actually have a conversation about this? I don't know. By the way, in case you're wondering what this is obviously a shot of people in a bus. If you were watching yesterday, you know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, so Sean Spicer, everybody. Spicer and Company.
Texas House Democrats that fled Texas say that their fight is far from over. They're ready to hang out in D.C. for weeks. Oh, all while on the taxpayer dime, by the way. They received $220.
Did he just do a helium pull right before he went on air?
$21 a day in per diem. That's in addition to their salary.
Let's see. A company brief. 58 Texas Dem fled to D.C. over Bonneville. 2 charter flights cost approximately $100,000. State reps collect $221 daily stipend. Texas House Speaker demands that they return that money. Okay.
And the charter flight that they took up to...
The chatter flight. Yeah, it's made completely a chatter cheese.
D.C., by the way, cost about $100,000.
God damn. It's not me, right? His voice is... What is happening to Sean Spicer? Did he forget to take the ring off before he came to work?
But Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar, she's thrilled.
We stand here with these people of courage, with freedom fighters.
So when you see POC written on somebody like Black Indigenous People of Courage, all right,
who came to Washington, D.C. To seek salvation because...
Oh, salvation. All right.
They are not going to be able to get that governor of Texas to protect the voting rights of the people of Texas.
Oh, God.
Now you know how I feel when I see your face, Sean.
Our company is here to react. RNC,
our company.
National spokesperson and Black Media Affairs Director Paris Denard, and National Memo Editor-in-Chief Joe Conason. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Joe Conason. No, thank you. It's exactly what the lady said to Eddie Murphy in Golden Child when he was on the airplane and someone was offering him, like, I think it might have been fish or chicken, but it's supposed to look like lizard or something. He's like, Joe Conason.
Oh, Paris, I want to start with you. Freedom fighters? I mean, I cannot believe that they're not doing their job. I mean, if she wants to talk about them, if they're there in Texas and they're...
Well, sure they are. They're representing their constituents. But their constituents are going to get stomped on by the Republicans, who are going to use a straight majority in a state like Texas to railroad their constituents, and therefore they're leaving the state to protect their constituents. That's their actual job. Their job isn't to rubber stamp the majority's ideas ever.
They're fighting. This isn't how you get things done. You don't run from.
Well, they're stopping something from getting something done. By the way, why aren't you having Mitch McConnell on as a guest? Anybody?
If they want
Spicer, please sing the Lollipop Guild song.
To stay and fight and talk about it, I get it. But to talk about running away from your job and then you're a freedom fighter?
Sean, do you remember when Amy Klobuchar was running for president? She always would say, "Who says that? I mean, come on, who says that?" Seriously, Senator Klobuchar, who says that? Freedom fighters seeking salvation? Freedom fighters are the people in Cuba right now who are literally trying to be saved from communist Cuba, where they have no property rights, they have no ability to be an entrepreneur, where
they have no ability to elect their representatives, who in the case of overreach by the majority party in a state that has an uncomfortably large number of people who support secession, bulldozing their voting rights and making it so they can't vote, and so that their representatives that they voted in leave the state as an act of defiance to that. Yes, Cubans do not have that ability. You are correct.
But they're actually starving and
Thanks, Jill
freedom.
Carter.
They want American freedom. Those are freedom fighters. The cowards from the Texas legislators who are fleeing from their jobs and their responsibilities because they don't want to have election integrity, they are not freedom fighters. And they owe every Texan a refund for the silly, foolish boondoggle of a PR stunt that they're pulling. It's embarrassing. And Klobuchar and the Democrats should actually apologize to actual freedom fighters who are seeking salvation, because those Texas Democrats are certainly not it.
Well, that wraps it up. I feel better about this whole thing. I mean, you know what? You're right. You should deny poor neighborhoods drop boxes and polling places, and fewer machines would be better in those areas, I think. And laws about not passing out water when their lines are 7 hours in these areas and they're 10 minutes in another area. And then because if I don't need water, you don't need water, and your neighbor. Come on. I mean, honestly. So, yeah.
Joe, what I think is missing from this debate that annoys me to no end is
I'm glad. By the way, I can't tell you how happy I am that Sean Spicer is annoyed to no end.
I want to hear a provision that these
now this really pisses me off to no end.
Texas legislators are proposing, the Republicans.
I'll do his tie. Oh, that's a terrible idea. I don't know. The problem I have is that A, his general background's fairly green. And secondly, I don't know enough about this guy, nor do I want to pick out something specific at him. Believe me. You can't just go to that one every time. I appreciate
inhibit
pointing it out,
freedom. Because right now, as of a year ago, you voted by either going on election day or casting an absentee ballot. Everything that is happening right now actually increases your ability to vote. No one's freedom is at stake here.
Let's see. Hold on. It's a worthwhile question. Hang on one second. Let's see. All right, I'm going to go in here, and let's see. Texas voter. What are they going to call it? The integrity bill. Contents. All right. So what's in this here? Here's what's in the Texas, the new Texas Republicans bill. Let's give a look. Let's see. Come on, Sean. You could bring this up. I'll bring it up. Let's see. Texas Republicans introduced another set of sweeping bills, multiple bills, not just one, that voting rights advocates say could make it harder to vote in a state that already has some of the most restrictive election laws in the country. Democrats left the state on Tuesday in a second effort to block the legislation. The bills, House Bill 3 and Senate Bill 1, were filed during the special legislative session called by Greg Abbott, which started last week. Republican leaders vowed to take another pass at approving voter legislation. Okay, what is it? However, do not include some of the more controversial measures that were added to the previous bill in the final hours of the legislative session in May. Okay, so the details. The latest bills in Texas include new identification requirements for people voting by mail and prohibit local election officials from sending a vote-by-mail application to someone who hasn't requested one. Local election officials. Okay, so you can't just send one out. Hey, if you want to vote by mail, you can do this as a regular part of regular point of order. And this one, new identification requirements for people voting by mail. That one's going to be interesting. I wonder what those are. They also banned drive-through voting, extended hours during early voting. Republicans in the state argue that these innovations, which were mostly used by Houston officials during the pandemic, opened the door to voter fraud. I don't know how. I guess they just drive back around. Hey, remember me? James Slattery, a senior staff member with the Texas Civil Rights Project, said voters of color and shift workers benefited the most from these methods of voting last year. Well, that obviously reason enough to get rid of them. So you consider the ban on these forms of voting to be a direct attack on voters of color in particular. Let's see. In addition, the bills expand what partisan poll watchers can observe during elections and prohibits poll watchers from being removed for violating election law. Oh, so if a poll watcher violates election law, they cannot be removed from the site. You just get to keep doing it? If passed, these bills would also create new criminal penalties for any election worker who intentionally or knowingly refuses to accept a poll watcher. So they just have to let anybody in there. So just steamroll, folks. Both bills make it harder to control disruptive partisan poll watchers when they're acting aggressively or disrupting voting. Bills also create a slew of new criminal penalties and requirements for folks who assist voters at the polls or for people who assist others planning to vote by mail. For example, they require that people fill out paperwork if they're taking someone who is not a relative to vote in person, and they require people to exit a car if there is someone voting curbside in that vehicle. You can't stand over here. I gotta vote for him. I gotta vote for him. I gotta vote for him. So you gotta stand All right. And while Republicans have backtracked on another provision that would have made it easier to overturn election results, Slattery said those bills kept other parts of that measure. Let's see. Republicans focus on fraud. Yeah. Fraud. Let's see. State Rep Travis Clardy, a Republican from Nacogdoches, who's a member, told NPR in June that he has zero doubt about the legitimacy of the elections in the state. This is a preventative measure for us. Again, all this shit has nothing to do with stopping black people from voting, all this stuff. Believe me, Democrats will make sure that they meet all these standards, as dumb as they are. This is about getting Republicans to go back to voting, because they're not going to vote because Trump's telling them it was all bullshit and rigged, and they're going to rig it next time. And unless they have some sort of like big newsworthy win where we passed a bill that shut down all this fraud, unless they can say that, their folks aren't going to come back to the polls. They're going to and they're going to lose 8% of those folks anyways. It's already a shitstorm, and they know it.
Well, Sean, clearly.
Yes, and there are more. Good point. Nurse M in the chat room. There are more like low income whites that will be affected by these rules negatively than there are people of color in the whole goddamn state. But they don't care about those people, and they don't expect them to vote anyways. So they're trying to cut down on the other numbers and
really
make those people
the Texas
think that Trumpies are running.
Democrats feel differently. Why would they, if they thought that the proposals by the Republicans in the legislature were going to improve people's opportunity to vote, I don't think they would have left. They're,
But this isn't about feelings. What I want to know is...
No. You know what I mean. They're committing an act of civil disobedience, and, that's their choice. I think Amy Klobuchar said freedom fighters just to annoy you guys. I mean, I don't know,
And it worked.
They're not like the people fighting the regime in Cuba. That's certainly true, although why that has to be dragged into this, I'm not sure. But
well, I'm sure. I can tell you, Jokannason. It's because the guy just below Sean Spicer in the Four Squares, I think that's Marsha, he brought it up because he doesn't have another argument. Because a flailing, semi-sarcastic slam at Amy Klobuchar is really the only thing he has about this, because he's aware, he knows that you're telling the truth.
There's an ongoing debate over voting rights in this country, and it's clear that the Republicans would like to restrict people's access to the ballot in many places.
That's just not true.
They say it's because of election integrity.
Okay, stop. Here's what I'm going to ask you, Joe. Joe, do me a favor. You can answer one question.
Go ahead.
Tell me, this is what honest to God, I want to know this.
And I don't know what happened to Sean Spicer. I do not remember his voice being this high. Somebody's fucking with him. There's got to be something. What is on here? Is this woman's arm like reaching over and just squeezing his right testicle and just this whole time? By the way, does the woman get to speak on Newsmax? I don't know what the rule is. Do they just have one? Is it part of their like contract that there must be a pretty blonde in one of the boxes that you could just look at in case you glaze over the rest of the conversation?
Know this because these are all DNC talking points. Tell me one provision, name one that restricts somebody's right to vote. One provision that restricts it.
Well, if they're for instance limiting the number of drop boxes as they try to do to make it one drop box in a county of many thousands of people.
How many drop boxes were there? Hold on, time out. Okay, so last year before the pandemic, there were zero.
Yes.
Hold on. There were zero. So you know what? Should we have 1 million drop boxes? Should everybody get their own drop box out in front like they used to deliver milk and you got a box out there? This is a stupid discussion. There was...
This is a stupid discussion. I think we had a new title for Spicer and Company.
No such thing as a drop box prior to the pandemic.
But
yeah, there were.
There were, and there should be. See, the thing is that they're not negotiating in good faith with the Democrats. They drew up a bill.
By the way, there were long-ass fucking lines. And instead of long lines, which are impossible during COVID, they provided drop boxes. In this one, They now know that one of the ways you can cut the lines down is make drop boxes available. And what the Republicans in Texas want to do is go back to long fucking lines in areas where people will give up or can't afford to give the time or have to go home to their kids or have to pay a babysitter. These like ancillary passive poll taxes is what this is.
They rammed it through the legislature. They're not discussing with the Democrats, especially the minority members of the legislature, what their concerns
They're
are
in the majority.
with these provisions, and they should. I know what's.
Wait, Sean. So are the Democrats in the House, the Senate, and the presidency right now. So, Sean, bring it. Or we're just going to do whatever the Democrats want to do right now then. Is that how it works? Because if 10 Republicans aren't in the building and the Democrats call for a vote on something, the percentage 60-40, it would clear for stuff to be passed with the number of votes we have.
What's wrong with having a real discussion and taking into account people's concerns?
Well,
They
here's
won't-
the problem.
I wish they would have a discussion, but they're not there to have it. They've fled their job
that's
so
not
far.
fair either, Lindsay. They were there until the moment when the legislators on the Republican side decided they were going to ram this stuff through, and the Democrats said, "No, you're not."
Okay, so
All
let
right.
me just ask this. Hold on, fundamental.
All right.
I'm sorry, Lindsay. I want to get this with Joe Harris. I apologize because I know.
No,
but
it's
here's
important.
my question: the way it works, and the way the U.S. House works, and the way that every book club works,
Why does
and every Cub Scout troop works, is the majority wins.
the majority wins? Sean. Kiddo. The Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Uh-huh.
That's how it works. And so the point
No,
is that
no.
the way that the Texas, yes, it is. So tell me
Is that
what.
Yes, it is. Come on,
How the U.S. Senate
Are they
works,
supposed
Sean?
to run away every time they don't like the bill?
Is that how the U.S. Senate works? You're fine with
Yes.
the minority rule in the U.S. Senate for some reason. Why is
No,
it
it's
bad
actually-
when the
they
minority
have
protests
rules.
in Texas?
You don't see the
Excuse me?
Republicans bailing Washington. They're there actually having a discussion.
Well, they don't need to. They have rules that allow the minority to control the legislature in Washington, which is completely wrong. But that's
Right, but
how
that's the Senate.
McConnell
This is the
manipulates
Texas
that.
House. So
and that
let's talk
doesn't
about
bother
the
you.
U.S. House. The U.S. House plays by the same
Well, you
rules
just
that they
said,
do.
You just said everywhere in the world majority rules, and we know that's false because
Sure
the
does.
majority right now in this country is controlled by a minority in the U.S. Senate that is able to overrule
Paris,
the vast
Paris,
majority of
hold
votes.
up, Paris, I need to get you in because I feel bad. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, Paris, say something to bail Sean out on this one because he's annoyed to both ends, and his chin is backing into his neck like somebody who bent down in an elevator to pick up a quarter, and the person in front of them just farted a beef burrito right in their face.
No, you're fine. Look, at the end of the day, Sean, your point is correct.
Well, it's not the end of the day yet, so perhaps he's wrong until
When
then.
it comes to freedom fighters, these people are not freedom fighters. And when it comes to the laws that are being enacted and trying to be enacted to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat, they're not making it so that people cannot.
Easier to vote and harder to cheat. What part of it makes it easier to vote? Any of this? Like that's a bit of a reach. He was basically just falling back on his same little like green block earlier.
Vote. No one's
is
freedom
cheating?
to vote is not happening. But what
The only
is
people I've
happening.
seen cheating are Republicans so far. We caught one in New York the other day on Staten Island. Guy was,
So the
using absentee ballots to try to win a.
You know what? Hold on
council
one
prize.
second. When the Supreme Court just ruled against the DNC in Arizona with the Republican Party there, the DNC could not find one example of how anybody was disenfranchised or any black person or Hispanic, anybody minority was not able to vote when they got rid of ballot harvesting and
That's not what the Supreme Court said.
In your precinct. It's because it's a farce. We are making it easier.
No, the Supreme Court said that if you did find that, it wasn't because of how the bill is. That just happens because of it. That's what a conservative court will give you.
To vote and harder.
Look, we have a general idea that pass a law that you can fire your gun into the air at a 40-degree angle, like that. And we know that nobody in town from this one particular place. We know that that's the black part and Hispanic part of town. That's the white part of town. And the only people who are allowed to use this place or go into it regularly are the white people. And we also know that they're allowed to do that. They're not going to fire 40 degrees in their direction. They're only going to do it this way. The law says you can do it 40 degrees and just fire it into the air. It's not the law's fault that all the bullets go that way. See what I'm saying? The Supreme Court's like, no. If it's used in a racist fashion, we can't do anything about that.
Harder to cheat. No one's
Where's the
freedoms are being
cheating?
infringed upon because it's, it's a constitutional right.
Where's the cheating
Great
except by
discussion.
Republicans?
I got to jump in here because we're way over time. We'll
Yeah, where's the cheating except by Republicans?
have to pick this back up. Great discussion.
Thank you.
Paris, Joe, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
You just watched news.
Yes, and we're all worse for it. It's very sad.